My name is Will Price. I'm a senior at Augustana College in Illinois. Was a physics major with a computer programming minor. I'm not sure anybody can hear this. They've cut the phones and most of the internet on campus. I don't know how much time I have. I think I've been able to connect to some off-campus server or something. I don't even know. Just sheer damn luck, I guess. I may be minoring in computers, but I don't know jack shit. No! No. On. Stay with me. There. I think the connection is stable. Damn Swanson connection. Anyway, I don't know the specifics about what has happened or what is happening. I heard rumors yesterday about what started it. I mean, chemicals are always the source of this kind of event in movies, right? Chemicals or a virus? I don't even know. Somebody, Kyle I think, told me that he just heard something down the hall on the 3rd floor of Hanson. Then screaming. Blood. I don't know. It's Kyle. I have to take what he says with a grain of salt. But something happened. Between Kyle and someone else I had found in the library, I gather that whatever happened occurred around 10 in the morning yesterday. In 45 minutes, there were infected swarming the campus. I was headed to the CC when I saw people running out of Hanson. Half of them screaming in fear, half howling. I don't know how else to describe the sound. It was as if half their vocal cords had been stretched and fried. It's such a shrill sound. God. Public safety was useless. So were the cops. These things, it's like they took shots of PCP. Within the hour, they had taken over all of Lower Campus and were moving up to Erickson, Westy, and into the next several blocks. In an hour and a half, there were about 30 of us locked up in the Brew. That was brilliant. Once I had seen them running out of Hanson, my first reaction had been to head into Olin. Once inside, I started to run towards the desk at the end of the hall, yelling, but I wasn't even halfway down the hall by the time the first infected had entered the building. It had literally thrown itself over the desk before the student worker had time to react. It sank its teeth into her side. The girl. I'd never seen her before, ever, but I will never forget her face at that moment. She screamed. She was screaming and hitting that thing while it took a chunk out of her side. The skin and muscle tore away like freaking paper. I didn't stay. I turned again, running back towards the doors I had come in. Outside the glass doors, I could already see other people running around, and infected picking them off. One of the infected stopped and explosively vomited blood on the ground. I saw a couple running hand in hand. They were running up the stairs to the Geo building, but an infected leaped from the top and took the guy down. The girl screamed as the two bodies fell backwards. I saw the infected fall away down the hill, and the guy's head hit a cement step and was snapped backwards. The girl started down the steps toward her guy friend. He was dead. I couldn't imagine she didn't see it. Even as she started down, the infected body had gotten up and lunged for her. It grabbed her ankle and pulled. She fell, hitting her head on the railing of the steps. The infected bit her in the leg, and she screamed. I had seen as the infected started to eat away at her. It couldn't have even been 20 seconds, and she started convulsing, puking, and then made that sound. I didn't wait anymore. Behind me, I could hear the screams of both the living and the infected. I burst through the doors and entered the chaos. Outside, the quad was filled with the same sound Olin had been submersed in. Screams. To my left was two infected tearing away at a limp body. I ran to the right. In the small pathway that led to the Olin stairs, there was a group of infected. 3 of them were separated off, surrounding a guy who was kicking at him. The rest were headed up the stairs after more living. Some of them lunged up the stairs while others slowly staggered up them. One of them tore at a person, and the other 2 looked up to see me. As I sprinted away, they took off after me, howling. I took the library stairs, 3 at a time, not looking back. When I reached the doors, I flung them open. One door had hit one of the 2 infected in the head. I hadn't realized they were that close. I passed the second floor doors, screaming as loud as I could. A weak, stupid attempt at warning the people inside. I could hear the infected still following behind me. I passed under a ladder left up by one of the builders inside and headed up the stairs beyond. On the second flight was a worker sitting. probably the one using the ladder. I yelled at him, telling him to run. He just stared at me until he saw my pursuer. The worker had started to get up as I passed him, but was brought down instantly. I didn't watch. As I continued up the steps, I could see out the window. I watched as the infected were running and staggering after people who fled from them across the Swanson Bridge. I could see one single infected try to limp across 38th, all ready only to be hit by a car. It was all happening so fast. When I reached the Brew, no one had a clue what was going on. I came in and was met with blank stares by about 10 people. Outside was the sound of builders working on the library's new addition. Moving their machines around and digging, I could just see past them the first few infected running amongst cars near Bartholomew. I could hear something howl behind me, and the people in the Brew gave me questioning looks. I closed the doors behind me and started looking for anything to help lock them. I yelled frantically for help, but no one was getting up. A few moments later, the first person came running through the other library doors. They must have been able to reach the elevator. They were yelling for help between breaths. I took a wooden table and busted the table. I took the legs and put them between the door handles, and just as the infected that had been chasing me before came running up the stairs, it slammed against the doors hard, and a group sitting near them all yelled in surprise. One of them stood up quickly, dropping his laptop. The infected backed away and slammed against the doors again. I could see the wood splintering. I yelled for people to try and find something else to keep the doors locked. Someone was already taking off their sweatshirt and tossed it to me. I went to the door, and the infected gave a howl, which was cut off by a gurgling sound. It then vomited blood over the door. I wrapped the sweatshirt through the handles and started to tie it as the infected threw its body against the doors again. Someone else came up next to me with a metal pole and placed it through the handles of the doors as I finished tying them off. The infected then hit the door repeatedly, again and again. I looked back and saw people were already looking outside. Several infected were climbing over the chain link fence while others pushed on it. They were heading for the workers who were trapped in the pit that they had dug out. 2 living people were running for the makeshift wooden pathway at top speed away from the infected that followed them. I ran to the doorway, and someone had already opened it as the living ran through. 2 infected were starting down the wooden path, and I could see more coming. The person at the door shut it and pulled as the infected slammed against it and then started trying to open the door. I joined him in trying to keep the door shut. We needed to lock it. The person beside me yelled for help, and one of the Brew employees came over quickly with what looked to be a key. She locked the door, and we dared to let go. The infected pounded and howled. More and more started to file into the wooden pathway. There were more of the staggering kind than the faster ones. They rolled their heads back, howling. Then all of a sudden, without warning, the wooden pathway gave way under the weight of the infected. The wood splintered and the framing bent, and the infected fell to the hill below and rolled away. Infected still standing on the uncollapsed side of the path watched and looked back. They stayed there watching us, like vultures. Then there was a sudden commotion back towards the stairs. Several more people were coming in through the doors from the elevator, including a builder and a professor I had seen once in Old Main last year. There was a banging on the doors to the stairway, and it sounded like more of the infected had made their way up the stairs. But then there was a string of voices yelling for help. Someone was hurriedly untying the hoodie, keeping the doors closed. As they opened, 5 more people filtered in. I could see the infected that had been chasing me slumped against the wall beyond the doors. Somebody had managed to wedge some wooden object into its skull. As they filtered into the Brew, I could hear more howls and heavy footsteps coming from the stairway. The doors quickly closed and tied back up. A moment later, there was a loud bang as bodies flung themselves at the Brew doors. They backed up and rammed the doors again, and howling and vomiting. A small pool of blood began seeping in through the bottom of the door. Someone started saying something about blocking the bottom of the door, and people moved around trying to find things, hoodies, boxes, anything to block the gaps in the door. The infected beyond pressed against the door, feeding their hands through the gaps and clawed at the door. Someone took the remnants of the table I had broken and swung at the fingers and hands while the builder and professor moved one of the Brew couches in front of the doorway. One more person came through from the elevator and insisted on locking those doors as well. The pounding against the doors with the couch in front of it lasted for several minutes. Then it lessened. They never seemed to go away, though. We heard their echoing howls in the stairway. I remember turning to look outside. Some of the infected had torn down the construction fence and were tearing the remains of the workers to bits. One of the workers was infected. It was missing a leg and trying to pull himself up the hill. I looked around. Kyle was the only one I knew, and I didn't even really know him. He was at several parties I had gone to, and he was around Olin a bit, so I talked to him from time to time, but I never hung out with him. He always kind of seemed like a D-bag. Everyone else was strangers. I had seen them around, at least a few of them, but I didn't know them. Sandra. I had to call Sandra, so I did. I called her, but there was no answer. I remember my heart sank, and I could feel the blood drain from my face. Others were on their phones as well. I don't know who to. Parents, significant others, police maybe, I don't know. Through the windows I could see more and more people running around, some trying to get to their cars and failing, some getting to them and crashing as they tried to leave. It was chaos. Inside we all gathered around. I felt a weight on my shoulders, and I remembered that I still had my backpack with me. I quickly moved to a table and took out my laptop. I logged onto the internet and checked all the available news feeds I could find. Nothing. At least, not yet. I took out my phone again and used the police scanner app I had and tapped into the Rock Island channel. It was going crazy with cops, shouting back and forth over the radio. 2 others in the Brew came close to listen to the broadcast. We listened as one of the cops crashed into one of the infected and then collided with something else. Then there was static. There was a moment when we all just looked at one another in the small space. I tried calling Sandra again and got nothing still. We knew we were trapped. Within the hour, we watched as outside more and more living died, and more the infected started wandering around. It seemed like the commotion in the stairway was growing. The ones near the door stopped pounding as much, but there were a few that were still hitting it every now and again and trying to claw their way in. It had been an hour and 15 minutes since the outbreak, and I refreshed my webpage. The first news article had surfaced on the event. People crowded around and read the article. I tried Sandra again. The phone rang, and then finally there was a click. I heard her voice on the other end. It was hushed and scared. She said there were others and that they had managed to break into Old Main and were held up in there at the moment. I tried to talk to her and calm her down. Then there was a sudden loud snapping sound, and then a distant scream over the phone. I asked, "What's going on?" I managed to hear her say, "I don't know," in a panicked voice, before there was a beep, and the call ended. I looked, and there was a notice saying no service. I heard someone say by the computer, "What the hell?" And I moved over to see the web page refreshing. The new page that came up showed an edited news feed with something about a prank, and then the page refreshed itself again and came up with a connection error. I pushed people out of the way and started typing away at my computer, trying to reconnect it. Nothing was working. That was when we heard the sound of rotor blades in the sky. Several people moved towards the windows in time to see some kind of military helicopter heading towards the west over Bartholomew House. 2 more followed it. The infected looked up at the flying machines but seemed relatively unfazed by them. At first, several of us seemed excited that the military was here. I was among them. But really, they weren't here to help. They were here to quarantine. Slowly, within the second hour, all phone lines and internet connections were taken down. All but the electricity to the campus was gone. Most of us didn't even associate with the military, but as the hours went on, we kept wondering why they weren't coming to save us. Had the armed forces failed us as well? As we were locked up in the Brew, questions and worries kept popping up. All I could think about was Sandra and the call. What had happened? Was she okay? Would I see her again? Would I see anybody ever again? The time seemed to slip by so slowly. Everything had happened so fast. But time creeped by. By 3 o'clock, it had seemed like an eternity ago when the actual outbreak happened. The Brew had been stocked with some lunch sandwiches and, of course, plenty to drink. But we were kidding ourselves if we thought this would sustain us beyond tomorrow. And then there was the bathroom situation. The builder said that the 4th floor bathroom was already torn out, and that the only way down besides the stairs was the elevator or the slope outside. Neither was an option, really. God, building that student center under the library screwed us over. Stop! I seriously don't know how long I can stay here. The connection is breaking up again. I don't know. Maybe I can get the connection to go mobile if I connect the recorder to the server. Something has to be done. The world has to know. I've been looking on this computer, and there is nothing at all. All I can find is that the article from earlier is now said to be a hoax, and people don't even know that the military are around. How is that even possible? How do people not even wonder what is going on or question this? After 3 o'clock, while we were still in the Brew, we started talking about what we were going to do. We knew we couldn't stay there. Kyle told us what he had seen. Apparently he had some class and was just standing around when all hell broke loose. There was a group sitting off in the far corner consoling each other as they cried together. The large group talked about things they had seen. I piped in about the infected, how there seemed to be 2 kinds. I had seen some that staggered and some running. A few of them talked about seeing that too. Movies, horror movies, I stay away from. I don't know a whole lot. They always bothered me. But I know enough that in the movies it's either one or the other, not both. So it was odd. In fact, Kyle tried to say it was impossible. I asked him how did he know? Had he ever been through a zombie takeover before? He stopped talking after that. For a while the conversation just kept going in circles, trying to avoid the situation at hand. We had to move. There was a long pause, then the professor finally said it, and we all paused again before we started offering up options. Heading north or east was out of the question, it seemed. The infected spread faster in those directions than they had toward upper campus to the southwest. At least we assumed, but now there was no telling how many had taken the slough path and reached Erickson and Westy and beyond. But still, many wanted to head up to Hy-Vee. Food, resources, and maybe we'd run into a military setup for help. The choppers were heading towards the west. It made sense, right? But there were some that didn't want to. I didn't. I wanted to get to Old Main and find Sandra. Kyle said something about that being a classic zombie movie move, but the builder just told him to shut the hell up already. This wasn't a movie. Apparently, the builder had a brother who was on the team helping to renovate Old Main. He wanted to get to the other building as much as I did, but one big obstacle stood in our way before we could go through with any plan at all. We didn't know how to escape from the Brew. Every way seemed surrounded by infected. We could try the elevator, but by now if we tried to leave through the 2nd floor, we could be easily attacked as if we took the stairs or tried to go down the slope. Someone suggested the 1st floor. Was there a chance that possibly there was less infected on the 1st floor of the library? I thought the idea seemed feasible, at least for me. The others were still stuck, though, and the 30 or so of us in the Brew had pretty much already eaten the food that was left. Outside, not only was it getting a little darker, it was getting foggy. There was a dense gray cloud of smoke billowing around the surrounding buildings. All that remained of the food was one chicken wrap and a few bags of those crappy chips they sell, and some candy bars. In the stairway every now and again came the howl of an infected, until at one point we heard a loud banging sound, and then there was silence. Then came another loud bang, and the howl. Then there was a chorus of howls and bangs, and we could hear loud thumping coming up the stairs. We heard voices. Voices! Not howls. We all gathered toward the doors and peered through them in time to see several armed men in dark clothes shoot down the infected around the door. A girl started crying and was smiling as her friends started yelling at the soldiers saying, "We're in here! We're in here!" But they knew. I saw as the men with guns moved towards the door and lifted their guns. Someone close to me, I think it was the builder, cursed as the men started to fire. Those closest to the doors took a good spray of bullets. Their blood sprayed everywhere. I fell to the floor and crawled over to my laptop. I wasn't a hero. I didn't fall over anybody trying to cover them up with my body. I could only think about grabbing up my gear and leaving. A few others were doing the same. One tried to head out the back door by the fallen pathway, and as he did, his foot got caught by an infected below. He was pulled away, screaming. I put my laptop in my backpack and started for the doors that led to the elevator. There were a few others left in the corners of the room. I crawled over to the doors and tapped the handicap button. The door opened up slowly, taking a string of bullets. The glass cracked and formed a spiderweb shape. Behind me, I saw a few people crawling after me. The door closed, and we headed back to the elevators. And we entered the elevators and headed down to the first floor. Once the door opened, we were met with utter darkness, except for a beam of light entering in through the glass door. We started for it, but stopped once we saw a dark shape move to our right. Then the figure howled, and I have to pack up. We started running. It leapt forward and grasped onto the worker, who was then pulled into the darkness. The girl and I moved in amongst the stacks of books. When we hit the cabinets against the far wall, we moved sideways against them. She started crying, and I have to admit I wanted to join her. We listened as the worker made faint gurgling sounds, and the infected fed on him. Then there was a silence, and a soft groan. I thought the howling was bad, but this groan. I risked a look around the corner. I could see the infected slowly limp towards us. Its head twitched, and it dragged its left foot along. Behind it, I could see the dark form of the torn-apart builder. I mentioned to the girl to move back even more towards the other wall. She inched closer and closer, and I followed. I watched as the shadow slowly came closer down the middle aisle, parting the 2 rows of stacks. Our bodies were now pressed against another wall, and the infected had now reached where we had been, and was looking right at us, or smelling us. I couldn't tell. It made a growling sound and started moving faster, so we did too. It clawed after us, and I kicked it, knocking it down. I pressed a button on one of those stacks, and they slowly started to move apart. I held that button down until there was enough room for us to squeeze through. I pulled the girl through, and the infected slowly started to crawl after us. Once through the stacks, I found the button on the other side in the dark and pressed it. I watched as the stacks then slowly moved shut again, on the infected trying to crawl through. As the stacks full of journals and books closed, the bones of the infected cracked loudly, and it vomited blood. We backed away as a pool of blood started seeping from the crushed body. Then the girl screamed in my ear and was jerked backwards into the darkness. I looked around and noticed that the worker's body was no longer on the floor. I didn't wait. I ran. I ran towards the door that led outside. As I reached it, I threw my whole weight against it, and it flung open. I stumbled and rolled down the slight slope. I prayed my laptop was okay as I got up and started running towards Old Main. There was a massive amount of smoke in the air, and there was an orange glow past Olin. I looked up at the steps of the library and saw several flashlights moving around and voices. As I ran, I heard one of them call out in a loud voice, and then there was a single shot. Then movement. I ran as fast as I could towards the building. As I passed Olin, I saw the source of the smoke. In the coming darkness of the night, Hanson Science Hall illuminated the area like a beacon. It was engulfed in flames. In the smoke and falling ash, I noticed the shape of several infected staggering around the quad. Behind me, I could hear the shouts of several of the military men after me. I ran towards Old Main, only to be cut short by a large group of infected congregating around it. I stopped in my tracks and just stood there for a moment until I heard and felt a bullet whiz past my ear. I ducked down and saw an infected fall down. The bullet had struck it in the shoulder. I scrambled to my feet and started moving towards the hill that led to Founders. The infected convened on my location as the military did. The dark armed figures stopped and opened fire on the large group of infected that then noticed the presence of the soldiers. The horde started heading for the group of men. Amongst them, running at full speed, was Sandra. I watched as a bullet passed through her abdomen, and she continued going. She tackled one of the armed men to the ground and tore into him, spraying blood across the ash-covered grass. Then a bullet connected with her skull, and she fell over onto the ground. 20 seconds later, the guards started moving again. I stopped watching, my stomach's doing flips inside my body, and I started to run again. I ran towards the south from where I was. At the top of the hill were several infected. The only route that appeared open was the Swanson bridge. I nearly fell again as I scrambled down the hill and towards the bridge. I had shots, gunfires, and howls behind me. I did not stop. I just headed towards Swanson and hoped that I could get beyond there. My hopes were shot down in an instant, as I saw the pathway after the bridge was blocked off by a flipped car, and beyond it were several infected. So I headed towards the entrance of Swanson and managed to make it inside. Thank God the doors weren't locked yet. Once inside, I locked the electric doors shut after seeing that there were no infected in the lounge. I stood there for a moment, weighing my options. Then I headed up to the second floor, slowly. Once there, I moved to the closed Swanson C-store. Ever notice that it's never open when you want it to be? I had to use a chair to break into the store. Once in there, I nabbed what food and drink I could and stuffed them into my bag along with my laptop and then moved back downstairs. Then I locked myself in here. In the WAUG studio. I slumped down on the floor and cried. I cried until I passed out. In less than one whole day, the world around me had gone to hell, and there was no escape. I woke up around 9:30 and started tinkering with the WAUG server. Pure luck got me a connection to the outside. No way can it be Augie. Their connection is never this good. I don't know where I'm going to head. I guess I could try for upper campus. Or farther. But what's the point? For all I know, nobody's left. The soldiers could even be dead by now. And if they aren't, they sure as hell aren't here to save me. Maybe I should just stay here and... Just kidding. I'm getting out of here. If I plug in a wireless adapter, I should be able to take the feed live. Once I'm out of here, I don't know how strong the signal will be or even if it will last. Please, folks, call 911 and try to get help for me, for anybody still left here. Okay.
Eat.
The science building's still on fire, but most of it has since falling down. There's a heavy cloud of ash in the air, making it really hard to see too far in front of me. I'm on the middle portion of the Olin stairs. I still got several lights left till I get to the top. I've only run into one infected since leaving the studio, which I'm not sure is a good thing. I'm hoping they haven't moved completely up campus. I'm trying for the Hy-Vee. Okay, I'm at the top, moving towards Bartholomew. Okay. There's a group of infected close by the library. It's getting too dark to tell out who they are. Jesus!
Hey, calm down. Keep low and follow me.
Wait. Who are you?
My name is Jenny. I'm with a group of people. We're hiding in PepsiCo.
How many of you?
Don't worry about it.
Why are you out at night?
Will you just shut the hell up? Behind there! I think it's safe.
I'm not moving.
Then you're dead.
We don't know if it's safe yet. If we go out there, we could get shot.
Or you can stay here and get eaten. Whatever you want. Just follow me, be quick, and keep your damn mouth shut. Just keep moving. Ah! Get it off me! Go!
Are you okay? Are you bit?
I'm fine, damn it, just go.
God.
Don't look, just run.
Hey, come on! Come on, get inside.
Are all of you all that made it?
All that made it? Slick, you're better off than you were 10 minutes ago.
How does he know that?
We were able to listen in for only a few seconds. We knew someone had to be at the studio. I went out to see if I could find you. Didn't know I would find you as fast as I did. Why did you leave?
The studio was overrun. The infected broke through the glass windows.
Crap. We need to go downstairs.
Why are all of you here?
There was nowhere else to go.
What about towards Hy-Vee?
Did you hear me? Nowhere else to go.
But we're only going to be here until noon tomorrow anyway, if we can last that long. You want food? We have some.
Wait, why noon?
We were informed that there's going to be an evacuation tomorrow, around 3 p.m. It's going to be in the quad for all the survivors. We plan on going. It's going to be kind of a real-life run-for-your-lives race, I guess you could say.
That doesn't seem fishy to you?
What do you mean?
Jenny, we were just shot at, for Christ's sake. The military isn't helping us. They're killing everyone here. They'll kill all of you.
Quiet down. The others are trying to sleep.
There is no escape, Will. What if there really is an evac tomorrow? It's our only chance to escape.
No, you guys can't afford to be this stupid. There's not going to be any evac. They don't care. They're rounding us up to kill us all. I'm sorry, but I don't see it. I don't see the point in going back out there through that, only just to get killed.
So what are you gonna do then?
I don't know. Maybe I'll go out there and...